All righty. Good afternoon, everybody. We are live. It is good afternoon, good morning. I don't know wherever y'all are at. David. It's still what 9 a.m. over your time.
Yeah, 9
I
a.m.
love it. I love it. There you go. David just
Little
had his
morning
first.
panel.
Yeah, yeah. David's had his first cup of coffee. I'm on my 12th cup of coffee, so this is gonna be great. So for those of you watching, pumped to have you. I'm pumped for this. This is like speed dating. None of us know each other, which is great. I do know David just because David and I go back just with the recruiting industry. But aside from that, we all don't know each other, so it's gonna be a great conversation, getting to know each other. But excited for this conversation today because we are going to talk about actual founders building things in the AI space. And I think, listen, I mean, I play a lot in the engineering world, LLMs and buzzwords and buzzwords and buzzwords and things, and I don't know what it means. But one thing I just haven't heard a lot of is just having a really practical, tactical conversation with founders on what's going on, what's the business like, what the market's looking like. And so that's what I want today. And so I'm super pumped about that. Listen, if you are watching, obviously would love to hear from you. Please drop it in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Already have Jason, our community evangelist, on. So thank you, Jason. I pay you to comment, but it's good to see you. So thank you. All right, so we'll go around. The square, which is what I'm looking at right now. So David, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Yeah, I'm David Head. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Endorse.com. We basically enable recruiting at superhuman speeds with superhuman intelligence as well. So if you think of recruiting right now, it's very much a shotgun process that can take weeks or months, typically months, and we shave that down dramatically by giving you an AI that can do things like automate sourcing, applicant review, so you can be very precise finding the best talent, and then you're shaving down calibration cycles. You're not just randomly picking candidates to reach out to. You're very thoughtful, so you can hire better people faster with more efficiency at the end of the day.
I love it. That's awesome. Iana, you want to go?
Sure, yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Iana. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Dexago, an AI sales coaching platform for complex sales. What we do is we help sellers build trust with buyers by giving them some insights around the purchasing behavior and psychographics of those buyers and help them role play to be better prepared before speaking to them. And as a result, shorten the deal cycle. That's a little bit about us.
I love it. That's awesome. Zach, go ahead, man.
What's up, everybody? I'm Zach Holland. I'm the founder at Avery AI. We're building the first AI marketing manager. It's a unified platform to help you design strategy, taking into account all your marketing data and your team size and everything like that based on unique frameworks, working with some of the best marketers on the planet. Help you create tons of content, but then have an agent actually understand this is what AI can help with. This is when you probably need a human expert, then matching you up with that human expert, helping onboard and manage them. So that whether it's AI to get it done or whether it's humans matched, you can do it all in one platform.
I love it. That's awesome. You all have your pitches down. It's almost like you all practice that for things, which is great. So I want to dive into the first question and also shout out AI, right? I full transparency, I use AI to kind of develop these questions and what I wanted. So shout out AI. But basically, I know I've done a lot of these panels before, and we can go into the success stories, and I do want to talk some success stories, but I think a lot of individuals learn from failures, unfortunately, right? The failures are the things that teach you. And so, one of the things I want to talk about is like, what's the biggest technical challenge you faced in building your AI product? And really, how have you overcome it? So I don't know if anybody studied the questions I prepped beforehand, but who wants to kick this one off?
I can take that one.
David, you want to go ahead? All right, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I wouldn't say this is a failure. Any AI team's going through this same thing, and it's a ongoing challenge is accuracy, right? Like you're constantly raising the bar and what the AI can do, and you want it to be very accurate. You want it to excel, and especially in something like in our case, like talent sourcing and applicant review, we strive for 100%. But as anyone who uses AI knows, AI is not deterministic. So if you ask it for like the best ice cream shop in your neighborhood, it's going to give you two different answers sometimes. So how do you solve that? There's what's called evals. So it's basically like creating an SAT test for the AI. So like if you look at when like Anthropic releases a new model and OpenAI releases a new model, they have these tests that they say, all right, like our model got a 75 and our model got an 80. you're doing it right, you should have your own internal versions of these tests, but you have like hundreds of questions and like hundreds of examples or thousands, the more the better, that you're passing the AI. And, you know, when you make tweaks to the prompt or like tweaks to the models, you can see how that affects things to make sure that you're constantly making it more accurate.
I love that.
I can go next.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
And I did study your questions, but it was bad actually because I started like writing a lot of things that have been challenging, and it's hard to find one that's, you know, more important than the other. But I would say I can say like two things: one that was mostly at the earlier days, and one that was more recent. So for us, being an AI sales coaching platform, the goal is to be able to help, you know, a seller during the entire sales cycle. So there is very different ways people can ask for help because there's different stages and different names for all these things. So in short, we had to really create a very sophisticated dynamic context management system, right, that understands and prioritize the different contexts the user gives, like is it an objection handling scenario? Is it a value prop they need help with? And be able to really filter out anything non-essential so that the AI coach can maintain high accuracy and not having any hallucinations. So that took us a while. And I think the other challenge that came through these was, how do we score for the specific task right now, like a role play, let's say, for a cold call, while also having a progressive scoring framework that allows us to show that, hey, your seller is improving 20% on these. And the issue becomes that we have so many different dimensions we measure, from like verbal dimensions and non-verbal. Like it can be about pitching clarity, but it can also be about confidence and your pacing, and all these things have different weighting, you know, in the scoring. So these two, I would say, have been two challenges we were able to overcome, but, you know, it took some time.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Zach, you got anything on this one, man?
Yeah, of course. And I think like both of those are so spot on. I mean, like with, I think maybe not a technical challenge, but I think just a challenge in building an AI in general is just how like the pace of how fast everything is changing. I think all three of us are really application layers, and like on the infrastructure side, it feels like as soon as you develop a new kind of tool into the product, or as soon as you start testing a new model, then another one comes out the next week. And staying plugged into what's happening, not being left behind, so that you can be like that layer of trust for the consumer who doesn't want to be testing through every foundational model, or who trusts that you're going to be using the right, now just on like the qualitative scores on testing, like what agents are using to test your agents, and like all these things. It changes every single week. And so like staying plugged in, it really feels like, you know, as an entrepreneur, always kind of upset that you missed like the web boom originally, where it was like so easy. You put like a pet website up on the internet, and it was like groundbreaking. Yeah. It feels like that now. And it feels like, I mean, it's exciting, but for the same reasons, it can be tough not to get left behind. You spend absolutely. A week out of the news.
Yeah, I know. Seriously. Yeah. Like you got to be always on too, right? Because it's like, you can't take a day off because something may change.
Yeah. The differences are big. You know, yeah. It's not like, 0.5, it's 0 to 100,
Exactly. Let me ask y'all this too. So I do want to talk, I do want to highlight and have time for y'all to brag for a second, right? So let's go back around the horn. Zach, we'll start with you and then reverse it here. Talk about something you're really proud of. And I know I'm kind of going off script a little bit here, but talk about something you're really, really proud of that you've accomplished lately. Maybe something overcoming this challenge, if you want to expound a little bit more, or just something else.
Yeah, I mean, I think something that is always nice when you launch a product that, for us was in the works in one way or another for something like 6 years before we actually launched on October 22nd of 24. For us, the big theory was, yes, agents are incredible. Yes, AI is doing a ton of things. And it's going to continue to become more capable daily, but its best use case for a long time will be, how can we help humans collaborate in a more efficient way versus replace them? I think it's actually something that like all three of our products focus on and do. And now you're seeing that really becoming like the next wave of really well-funded and really powerful products. It's not, okay, great, let's get an agent to replace every single person on your team. It's like, how can we make them all superhumans and make them more efficient? And so that like big wave, I mean, you see legal companies that instead of let's replace all your paralegals. Let's make all your paralegals superhuman by connecting them with experts and things like that. That kind of like wave and feeling like we're really a part of it, and that you get to share in that momentum of hopefully a better feeling story than, oh man, like now I have to use AI to fire everybody that I know and kind of like replace the systems that I've always worked in. But oh wow, like my small team can actually do things that we used to just be able to dream of on like a per employee revenue basis or anything like that. Has been really exciting to see, and feeling like on our momentum side, you know, I've worked on a lot of go-to-market motions. I've been a part of a lot of early stage startups, and just the fact that like how the sheer amount of like inbound momentum that you can get when you crack that is unlike anything that I've ever experienced. And so, you know, for us having, you know, 50, 60 qualified signups a day coming in with inbound with like very little outbound motion at all or ads happening at all, feels like it's because you hit a moment in both like the international narrative on how to use AI matched with a product that had years of work behind it to kind of be in that moment.
That's awesome. Iana, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, and Zach, that's huge. By the way, it speaks to you finding PMF, right? Like that's amazing. On our side, I would say on the non-technical components, it's really building community, and we're hosting more in-person events because, to your point, we also preach the community side, not just AI on its own. And on the technical, we really saw a need to customize for the enterprises, like even further, because they all have their own sales methodologies, their own like scoring logics internally, years and years of enablement stuff they've created. So we basically developed techniques to embed their specific company KPIs, the industry context, and all the extra sales knowledge we've gotten from sales experts that we work with to manage basically an efficient way for them to receive that coaching that's aligned with their own specific sales approaches and strategies. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, and obviously we wouldn't be able to do that without the AI involved. So we're proud of how well it came out in terms of personalization.
That's awesome, David. Do you want to take a stab at this one, man?
Yeah, definitely. So the thing that we're really proud of, or at least me personally, is just how like stable and reliable the system is that we built. It works for even really large companies, which is really cool because they have a super high bar. Getting things like an ATS sync to work when you have millions of candidates in the other database is like really actually hard to make stable. And then when you're dealing with the AI, we decided to make a really, really complicated AI that when the user's using it, it's really simple, but it's really hard on the back end. And like if you look at our other companies doing the same thing, they've kind of cut a lot of corners where like you don't really know what the AI is doing. It's still kind of a black box algorithm, but we built ours to review and communicate with you just like a human, and it's completely understandable too. So we found that users trust it because it reviews just like a human, versus probably like there are only a few like a small number of systems that even review close to like ours does as far as the method goes. And that's just really hard to build. So I'm grateful for my co-founders on that one, that they're such great engineers.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
The simple things people don't appreciate of like just how much work it goes into making something stable at scale like that, for sure.
Yeah. It's like you use the thing that's like, oh, okay, like, you know, I've got my scores on my applicants. It's like telling me who's good, who's not, why, and they have no idea that like we almost blew up a few like systems under the hood because there's so much happening. You know, at least was what happened. You know, like a year ago when we were building it, it was like constantly just hitting the infrastructure limits of these systems with what we were pulling off.
That's awesome. So one of the reasons why I like doing live is because we get questions. So we've had a bunch of people comment. I do want to go to Jason. He had a good question. He says, how do you decide where to use AI in your product? Because we don't need everything with AI. Toasters, get out of here. So I am curious. I mean, obviously, when you guys, you know, what are your thought processes on this? And again, I know this is again off the cuff, but I am curious if anyone wants to take a stab at this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to, and I think this might be kind of a cheesy answer, but it's just like anything that if our team not like hates doing it, but if it's a repetitive, miserable process, and there's an opportunity to remove that from people's days, like isn't that kind of like the ideal goal of building technology in the first place? I think a lot of times like AI gets built as like a fun, nice to have fun product because somebody could just build it. But I think that golden moment when, somebody has to spend 3 hours of every single day doing something repetitive and miserable that they really don't like. And if you took that time and gave it back to them, they'd be able to be more creative, more strategic, enjoy their jobs more, both on the product side, but then in like what we're building internally and for our team, it's like, what are the opportunities to be able to allow our team to be able to spend more of the time that we're paying for them to be what they're best at, which is like creative and strategic and actually thinking about how to build things, not running through and like doing the exact same thing every day. It's like, what are those repetitive processes we can take out as fast as possible?
I love that. David, Iana, anything to add here?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is just like a classic product question. Like, where do you upgrade any sort of feature? It's like, how much value is it going to get for a user? And then how many users are going to get that value? I'll also echo the prior point where it's like, you're looking at repetition there. Like in our case, the user's looking at like, there's 10,000 applicants or like 1,000 applicants on some of these jobs that'll come through. Okay, normally without AI, a user has to go through every single one of them. So then it's like, that's the obvious case where, okay, AI do a first pass review, find the top people. That's the most extreme scenario that we're dealing with. But then, less extreme scenarios are like, well, it's annoying to type a label in this thing. Okay, that's like, a few hours of engineering work to just have the AI write labels here.
Right.
So, that's kind of the spectrum of where the AI will get implemented, but it's sort of everywhere in our product. Honestly, it's hard to say. Like, there isn't much interface in our product if you use it. It's because we're using so much AI just to like remove everything.
That makes sense. Iana, do you want to take a stab at this at all?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think for all of us here, we created an AI powered tool.
Sure.
We're not, in that case where we had a tool before and we added AI, from my understanding. And for us, same thing, like AI is everywhere, but we do have certain points where the human in the loop, like let's say that sales manager can come in and approve things or create rules, or like say I want this type of skills to be measured. So in things like that, we have a human element, but for the most part, everything's AI driven.
Okay, that's fantastic. So next question, and an important question really, is obviously monetization can be a tricky thing. How have y'all set up kind of revenue streams or cost, or kind of the thought that's gone into that? Because, I've even just dealt with just trying to set pricing for random things in my career, and it's incredibly challenging. So I'm curious how y'all kind of gone about doing that. I don't know if anybody wants to take a stab at this first. If not, I can go around, start with David.
Sure. Yeah, I can take it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, pricing is tricky, especially in the age of AI, because software is historically usually priced at like a per seat model. But if you have an AI and the incentive is, okay, how do I make this one person 10 times as productive? Then you have a scenario where you have fewer seats a lot of times. So there can be a counter incentive there where, if you let that run away, there are lots of historical examples of businesses where you want to make sure your revenue model is like incentivized with value per users. So the way that we've handled this so far is like per seat plus usage. There's like a usage cap. So, it could be one person that's using it, but you have more seats in there because there's usage baked in with the seats. I don't love the model, but it's the best thing that we've come up with so far.
Let me ask you this. What don't you love about the model? Like that's frustrating you?
I wouldn't say it's like the biggest problem on my mind,
Sure.
This one. But it's not as simple. Like, I like simple, intuitive pricing. Like, when you go to buy an iPhone at Apple, it's like there are three iPhones or however many now, and they cost this amount. I want it to be as simple as possible, but when you start introducing this other variable usage, it can also like concern a CFO or someone like that who's looking at it and they're like, well, I don't know what the usage is going to be next year. And we're like, okay, well, if you use our product and then just go crazy with it, like, we could basically spend more in AI fees than we make under contract. So there has to be some cap. at least for the time being. So just balancing that. So like our customers comfortable, they have price predictability, while we also have predictability that we're going to be able to have a profit margin is can be a tough needle to thread sometimes.
That makes sense. Iana, do you want to go?
Sure. So we also started on seat-based pricing, annual pricing, and I think the disruption right now is outcome-based, right? So the way for us to get there is kind of two steps. So firstly, we started with the token-based alignment, right? That's classic. A lot of AI tools are doing it so that the pricing model maps the tokens directly to our computational resources, so we know what we're spending. And then we're doing the ROI linked value prop. So we're trying to create direct correlations of these token consumptions to measurable skill results. So let's say for a sales leader, they can see clear returns, like a seller is improving on negotiations because they came and did that practice. So your session investment results to skill score, and as a result, Dexago is helping you. So you're basically able to prove ROI. That's how we want to do it in the future. But for that, we need a lot of data points. And the other thing we're working on is we're launching a freemium model. So then we can do upsells, as well as creating add-ons with custom AI coaches that we're working on with real human experts that are very specific to a sales skill or sales methodology.
That makes sense. Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing about kind of like the timing of all this is it's not just that like AI enables new revenue models. It's also that I think the consumer base is starting to get really exhausted of traditional SaaS pricing. I mean, if the AI boom didn't happen, if ChatGPT never launched and we were all kind of like subtly building AI in the background, people are still getting sick and tired of, being locked into different, like one feature you need is behind a plan that then you need the annual contract lock in. There's like massive exhaustion of like adding yet another SaaS tool with yet another unpredictable amount of what kind of usage base is going to look at next year. And so we really wanted to come in with a really intentional approach to that of like, can we use the innovations on the product side to also innovate on the revenue and on the model side? And so for us, it's free to use Avery, it always will be. And we have kind of like our revenue models built into kind of subtly how you're using the product. It should be a win for us, a win for you, and a win for us, the experts and the expert human marketers that are working on the platform. And so, we have a transparent take rate of when the AI matches you with a human. Then as you're working with that human, we're going to have a matching and processing fee that we take. And kind of like matching up how our fees work underneath the product to making sure that, you never get caught with like massive computation costs on a user that you ended up using the AI a lot more than you would have. So like having guardrails and breaks in that when there are like usage-based pricing things that kick in. But the goal is that to a user, you can feel like, wow, like this product is actually incredibly affordable for the value that I get, and I never have to go to my CFO and be like, look, I need to be able to sign this annual contract. Will you please put the name on the dotted line for the 17th product this month of what we have to want to go out and try and use. So
I love that. That's awesome. So, and it really, I didn't plan on this. This is AI here, but the next question is when it comes to compute costs, right? I think one of the things that I have learned is that AI is not free to use. And like, I was like, oh, it's just everything's free. It's great. But like, I've talked with engineers around tokens and how much it costs, and then, searches and blah, 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 blah. So I guess the question is like, how are you guys handling the compute costs associated with running these AI models? And Zach, I don't know if you want to start. We can go back around.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's also really difficult when, again, like thinking about the consumer base, they've gotten used to the fact of like, oh, ChatGPT is free. Despite the fact that, you're talking about companies that are spending billions of dollars on compute costs on these free plan programs to like get people using the product. When as a startup, like you have to compete against that, right? That like the consumer mindset that like, oh, this should be free for me to use. But I think the nice thing is that, like, as we're seeing, like the kind of like costs underneath are becoming more and more commoditized. As like competition increases, you're not just like locked into whatever, the OpenAI, the OpenAI API is gonna run that week. And so the goal is that hopefully more of us can be able to build more innovative products far cheaper as there's more competition on the, on the actual side underneath. to be able to allow us to compete with that consumer mindset of like, oh, ChatGPT is free, like all my AI products should be as well, right?
Yeah. Iana?
Yes, so two things come in mind. First is that we follow a context-aware casting system. So in short, DexToGo uses prior retrieval results when a seller comes in. Let's say they are looking for a similar topic or scenario. We don't have to use the same like computational load because it reduces the processing. And then we also created like a tier processing pipeline. So for anything that is easy, routine analysis task, let's say we use our lightweight, like more efficient models. And then for more complex stuff, we use our resource intensive LLM. So by engaging them on a need basis, it basically helps us reduce those costs. And lastly, GCP. So we use Google Cloud's platform, and we're trying to optimize it and basically scale it again on a need basis.
I love that. David?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, how do you deal with the high AI costs?
And I was about to say we're friends, so like obviously I've heard from you. So
yeah, you know a little bit about
yeah,
yeah. I think it's really two things. Like one is if you build it in the pricing model and have like some sort of usage correlation, you can solve it that way. But the other way is have teammates who are really good at backend engineering. It's the simple answer. If you want a really quick and easy win, like one that seems like it's really intimidating and hard to do, but it's actually super easy, is just shift to open source models. Once you get out of the closed source model land with like OpenAI or Anthropic, and you're in the Llama land on a platform like Together AI or something like that, the cost when we did that dropped by like 90%. And then the accuracy drop was only like 10% initially. But then the thing is you can do things like have the AI check the AI and then like rerun if you need to. And then, then you might only have like a 2x increase in cost of your AI, but you're starting at like 10% of it. So you're spending like 20% of the cost to have even greater accuracy at that point. And that's just one tactic to increase the accuracy. So that's like the quick and easy win if you're building an AI. Just get into open source model land.
I love it. So I'm going to pull out for a second some like from a technical side of things and go a little bit more high level. I thought of a question, and there was another question in the chat that I want to get to. Is Jason again. So Jason, I appreciate this. And he meant to say funding, but where is everyone in funding right now? What are VCs looking for from AI companies right now? So I don't know if anybody wants to take a stab at this first.
Yeah, sure. Happy to talk about it. It's nice to be building an AI, of course, like just because, I mean, it's not even just that investors are interested in it. I mean, a lot of investors have raised their funds and earmarked half to spend in AI. And so, it's a nice landscape to be able to raise at the moment. It feels like, from a kind of a miserable end of 23 into a kind of a tough 24 where, I wouldn't say we're back to 2021, but it's definitely that deals are getting made. Large funds have huge earmarked pieces set aside for AI. And so it is a good time to be building and raising an AI. We've, on our side, we've been able to raise, about 5 million, I think, with a smaller team earlier in the product journey than, when I've raised in the past for traditional SaaS. At the same time, it's hard to, you have to have really, really clear ways to stand out because there's so much competition in the space. Everybody and their mom are building an AI product at the moment. And so making sure that there's really clear differentiators, that you're like beating benchmarks in every category, whether that is like your burn multiple or your retention, and really focusing on making sure that, your numbers are best in class, and that there's really, really clear differentiators is obviously super important, but there's a lot of deals getting done, and there's a lot of great teams that are investing in AI right now. So
I love that. Iana, do you want to go?
Yes, I would add that I think right now VCs want to see that you're breaking even, that you're cash flow positive. They want to know that you have the potential to either build the category, a new category, or be the leader. Because to what was said earlier, like there's so much competition in every single category. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It's a crowded space today. So I think, the stakes are high. In our case, we did raise a pre-seed And so far we're basically trying to just grow and then go for our seed. But if we can avoid it and not raise anymore, we also will do that. That's our primary goal.
I love
Which
it.
is just so interesting, because that's like what we're all trying to do at the moment, but it also breaks the entire VC model, right? Of like,
that's a whole
we have
other
companies that are raising pre-seed seeds and may never have to raise again, and are focusing on like building cash flow positive, like actual businesses underneath it, when, a lot of the VC model depends on needing you to go out and raise an A so they can increase, and then like, having 1 in 100 actually hit, where, now you have pre-seed companies that may, invest 5 times and 3 of them go on to be like long-lasting businesses, but never be, the blitz scaling monsters that like normally VCs built to fund. So it's interesting on that side.
Yeah. David?
Yeah. We raised a generous pre-seed, and fortunately have been able to grow our revenue, and our team's pretty technical, so we haven't needed to rely on as much funding. But the interesting thing going in fundraising is that VCs all want fully automated models. They want the agent. They want to hear, you're automating out an entire category of work. And it's interesting because like I've a lot of like ethical concerns with this. One, it feels just fundamentally anti-human. And then on the other, like customers don't want that. So like people say, okay, there's a VC pitch and then your customer pitch. But, if you pitch a VC, like we're building a full auto agent, then you go to, launch your website and it's a full auto agent, which is what the VC is expecting. Then you go to a customer and you're like, look, we're going to automate out your whole team. They're like, well, I don't want to be a manager of AI. I want to be a manager of like my 10 people under me. So it's funny, like some of the most successful fundraisers in our space seem to be dropping the ball, going to customers because they pitched, a full auto agent to the VCs, and then they're going to the customers, and the customers are like,
that's interesting.
Yeah. And then the customers, and they're like, oh, well, it's actually an assistant. And then the customers are like, I don't trust you. Yeah.
That's interesting. Let me ask y'all this, and it's kind of, maybe goes a little bit to what Zach said, but maybe not really. Where are you all seeing other founders in the AI space falling short right now? Like where, I mean, I'm sure y'all have friends, and y'all may be in, there may be that one friend that pops into your brain right now, like, Rick, right? Rick's not doing good. Is it like, is there any encouragement? Say what?
Support Rick getting thrown under the bus.
So is there anyone, or is there any like really just words of encouragement for other founders right now that you would want to give in the AI space? I don't know who wants to take this one first.
I think, connected to David's point, what I see a lot of founders being so focused on is just the automation part, and it's actually destroying everybody, because they just don't see, the impact like in the industry they're trying to automate in for the next 10 years. And I feel like we all have such a big responsibility with the tools we're bringing to market to really up level and help employees not really kill their jobs. And I don't want to get into this discussion, but I think if you're still early stage and you're trying to find talent and all of that, like you're in touch with the market and you see how hard it is for people to either find jobs or understand what's happening in the market, or as a buyer, the market is just so confusing. So we're talking on the one hand about all the nice stuff and the creativity and how nice it is to build, but the reality is that it's actually very hard out there for people to navigate the pace. So I think as founders, it's not about just continuously saying, okay, I'll build this feature, it will be an amazing thing, but taking a step back and really thinking how we're influencing the market and the industry, and not getting into a pricing competition and just, dropping it to $5 and then just killing the entire idea because of the business model.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. David, Zach, anyone want to take a stab at this?
Yeah, well, I think just to echo what both of them said, you see a lot of founders that are launching products that are like for VCs, and you can tell from the website, you can tell from the deck, you can tell from the product. And then they go out and they're confused why, a consumer base that's being told they need to use AI to become more efficient, but they're terrified of it taking their jobs, and they're terrified of it disrupting the ways that they've been able to learn how to work over the last, over their successful careers. And it's like we're losing, the founders that are struggling are the ones who are losing the connection with, like, do customers want, is this actually going to make their lives better? Is it framed and positioned in a way that the consumers actually want this product, or did you build something and launch it to try and raise VC funding, and now you have a product that VCs find interesting but no consumers actually want? Just being closer plugged in to kind of like the original OG basics of building a product, of it's like, do consumers want this? Listening to feedback, getting on calls with people, really keeping an ear to the ground on not where just funding is going, but where are shared wallets on these internal budgets going, and what are the buyers thinking? Most of the time you see that, and then you see founders that are over relying on like traditional and burned out acquisition tactics. Oh great, well, I'll build a product, we'll do some cold email, launch on Product Hunt, and then I'll go run some ads on LinkedIn, and I'm going to build a successful business that way.
As somebody that's marketing like me, that literally is it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's tired, it's burned out. And so it also goes back, it brings us back to like the most human basics of like, are you creating content that's actually genuinely helpful for people? Are you building, it's like, we have to also have a return. And like, when you do launch a cool product, you can't just like get an agency to do some cold email for you and run some LinkedIn ads and like expect to build a big business. It just doesn't work.
No, and I'm going to step in here. I'm going to interrupt before David goes. That's why I think, so I've been really, really big on the growth community role in organizations, because I think modern day I think traditional marketing is changing. I've talked to so many founders who have gotten rid of their marketing departments, AKA 2 or 3 people, because nothing was happening. Their best sales leads were coming from people on the team going to conferences or going to meetups and actually engaging the community. And so I've been really big on a shout out Torque for obviously bringing me into this role, because I really think it's the next evolution. And I think every company should look into that, right? I mean, every person on this call, like my community growth background is like, well, Zach should do this and Iana should do, like, literally I'm thinking that as I'm talking to y'all. So
well, tell us after.
Okay, great. Yeah, absolutely.
And finding those specialists, all the more important, of people who are there to build build marketing programs in a modern way that's based in community, based in content, versus, that's why those small marketing teams are getting fired. It's like, oh, well, like we have a fancy dashboard and we ran some ads, and it's like, it doesn't work anymore. And that kind of generalist marketer role is definitely in danger to people who really specialize in the modern ways to be able to actually build a program.
Absolutely. David, biggest advice tip to your friend Rick, who's failing right now?
My friend Rick, man, poor Rick.
Friend Rick.
The AI space is exceptionally competitive right now. I've never seen so much competition in startups. I've been working in startups for a while. So if that said, I think it's really important to just assess one's competitiveness. And, if someone's more competitive, of course, you can be more ambitious, try to take more of the space. But, if you have limitations, and for me, I look at like how technical is the team, how capable is the product. There's product in the marketing, but I guess like we index on the product, even though we think marketing is very important, Taylor. We think like product is like the long-term competitive advantage. So it's one of those things where like if you're more constrained, I think it's important to specialize.
Yeah, I think specialization.
Specialize, like verticalize. Like, okay, if you're, I don't know, like competing with Endorse, like Endorse is building for like the recruitment industry. Maybe you want to specialize in like the healthcare recruitment industry or something like that. And usually there are differences in those spaces where you can build out a niche.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think great answers, and we're going to the next question as we we're in the last like 15 minutes here. All of these questions, in my opinion, could almost be their own, like their entire episodes, if we're being honest. So, I do want to preface that I basically broke down. Everyone's got 3 minutes per question, so you can't really get deep. So, if you want to talk more shop, I'm sure all these founders will be glad to talk shop. So, definitely reach out to them afterwards. But so I kind of want the last 2 questions. If we wrap up early, no worries here. Around AI ethics, right? I mean, you hear it a lot. There's a lot of stuff being written right now. I guess how are y'all dealing with that topic in your organization right now? I don't know if anybody wants to take a stab at this, but I can call on David first.
Yeah, I think fundamentally it's important to approach everything with like a pro-human mindset. It's like, how do we help humans as much as possible? Versus just like, how do we automate away humans as much as possible? Like if you start with a pro-human mindset, like there is going to be automation, but I think that's at least ethically the thing that we focus on firstly. But then if you focus in on our industry, it's like there are lots of AI bias laws that are out there, and we want to make sure that candidates are getting fair assessments. And for those things, we do like annual bias audits for the third party, or we.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. Maintain compliance. Everyone in our space has to, but it's something that we make sure we stay on top of. Yeah.
Okay, love that. Iana?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the classic, like the PII protection, the GDPR, all of these things for sure. But specifically for us, something else we did has to do with workspace isolation. So every customer basically has a separated namespace, and that ensures that there's complete data isolation between different clients, and there's no cross-pollination, contamination of the data. And I would say another thing has to do with like adding layers, like multi-layer protection, so that even if, let's say, there's one single security failure, it doesn't impact everything else and it doesn't compromise the client's data. So really strong backend and infrastructure is required for all these things.
That makes sense. Zach?
Yeah, I mean, both those are great answers. And I think, yeah, for products like David's and I's, where you're matching jobs, you have humans involved, like the biases only becomes even more important, and making sure that you're building an equitable product that doesn't have these kind of things built in, which is so difficult in AI, and it makes like traditional software look like so kind of nice and clean cut, because language is such a big part, and language is such a tough thing to build in because it's so open-ended. People talk differently. People communicate with AI in ways that you never expected. They ask questions that can beat your guardrails, even if you really focus on those things. And that's obviously what makes AI the Wild West. Is like, it used to be one thing where it's like, okay, great, our fintech product, we can keep data in one place, and we know people are going to enter these three functions. Now it's like, hey, we want you to communicate however you communicate in a wide open world, using any kind of language you want, and we have to be able to build to make sure that the product stays within ethical boundaries. And it's like finding what those ethical boundaries are for different queries. It's a fun project, but it's definitely the Wild West.
Absolutely. All right, last question. We'll wrap up here a few minutes early. Give you a few minutes back. I'm gonna change this question up a little bit. And if it's too much of a change, let me know. But what is one product that you want developed right now in AI that you like need in your day-to-day that you would love to have? Prime example, it's already been developed, but like the other day I was like, sometimes I just like to ramble and hear myself talk with my team members, and I realized I got to protect their time. So like I was Googling like what AI product I just like talk to. And then it basically maybe spits out some recommendations or even just like some bullet points of what I'm trying to say to get across to it. That's something I needed. I don't know if any of y'all have thought about this at all, but I think this could be a fun little ending question. I don't know if anybody wants to take a stab at this first.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just go ahead, David.
Mine's really simple.
I'm
sure this already exists out there, but I haven't like done my research on it. But like, an AI that can help with ads. So, like, it seems like that should be a solved problem, or just
hit up Zach.
I was about to say, I saw Zach's eyebrows go up.
Is that what you have? Do you have AI that helps with ads?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, kind of like a core function, and a tough. It seems like a simple thing, but a really tough competitive industry to build in, right? Because it's but yeah, absolutely. I mean, go use Avery. Try it out.
There you go. This is why we do this.
Setting them up versus like creating the ads. It's like actually setting them up and like optimizing the cost and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And like for us, like we were talking about, David, of like where you keep humans in the loop there, like where can you use specialists and experts and like humans that actually are creative and like, media buyers, still a human media buyer who's really experienced will still beat like, completely automated, algorithms every single time. And so, but yeah, of course, like Avery breaks a lot of that down, makes it a lot easier for you.
There you go. Look at that. This is why we do this panel, y'all. This is it.
We are.
Iana, do you have something that you'd like?
Honestly, it's very tough because I also don't know if what exists out there, but I think I've seen it in pieces, but something that really helps comprehensively with go-to-market strategy today, like with everything we're saying, like the events, the type of people you need to hire, something that really can be specific for startups based on your states, telling you what's more likely to work. So we don't spend, as founders, months and months of experimenting and still like not having all the answers.
Yeah, that makes sense. Zach, your eyebrows lit up.
Use Avery for that. Use Avery for that too. Yeah. That was, I think, one of the most exciting things for us of what AI kind of unlocked that traditional software struggled with was like how to be able to build strategy in a modern way and be able to use frameworks developed by some of the best marketers on the planet so that you feel like you're working with a $20,000 a month advisor, but you can actually save a lot of time doing it. So thanks, Avery, for that.
Well, I'll hit you up, my friend.
Well, so this panel is actually just a Avery AI sales.
There we go. Yeah, I love it.
I'll send you some great content there. So.
Yeah. On my end, really excited just as like a consumer for like things that are still like broken and traditional that you can bring AI into, where AI can bring a more human component to things that are really, I don't know, like scary or challenging. An example would be, I have a friend who recently, you don't hear about this side a lot, but had a startup that they failed and they had to like shut things down. That is like a thing that nobody talks about, of like, how do you technically do that? What happens to your contracts? What do you do with your customers? Like, how can you make money on what you have left? I think there's a lot of really exciting things. And I was thinking like, oh, it'd be really great if you had an AI product that could be like, great, here's how we break down. Let me read all your contracts. Let's build a plan for you to be able to like conclude your business in the most like humane and ethical way. I think there's so many things like that are still like scary or very inhuman processes that we have people go through really in like the shadows, that hopefully AI could bring a more human feeling component to, that like actually helps people break down things that are really terrifying.
I love that. That's awesome. All right. Well, y'all, thank you so much. That was this is the first panel like Torque's ever done. So online, live. So hopefully I'll enjoy it. I saw the comments. We had a lot of people tuning in, and the comments have been great. So thank y'all so much. I'm working on another one of these, more on the C-suite level of more of like an enterprise businesses. So that should be another fun conversation around how C-suite executives are leveraging and really mindful of AI implementation within their organizations. So again, David, Iana, Zach, thank you all so much for hanging out with me for 45 minutes. I appreciate it. And y'all stay on real quick so I can say bye to you backstage. But thanks for hanging out with us. Go connect with all these founders, and I'm sure they love to talk to you. And y'all have a great rest of your Thursday.
A lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.